welcome. We're on location with Bookmark, a very special Bookmark coming to you from the World Media and Families in Philadelphia. And I'm joined by an author, but also the secretary of the Pontifical Council for the Family, who's been heavily involved with the whole World Media and Families from the beginning, Bishop Jean Laffitte. And it's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much,
Your Excellency.
for this meeting.
We had a chance to meet a couple of years ago at the Knights of Columbus.
A Supreme Convention. I think it was in San Antonio.
Right, exactly. We got to talk a little bit about your work with the Pontifical Council for the Family, and also the fact that you had a book, The Choice of the Family. That's the title, A Call to Holiness, Abundant Life, and Enduring Happiness. Now, you got some great forwards in there by Carl Anderson, Supreme Matter of the Knights of Columbus, and our wonderful local ordinary here, Archbishop Charles Chaput of Philadelphia, of course, who's been instrumental in hosting the event here as well. Now, you talk about the choice of the family. Why is family a choice in your mind?
It's because the choice of the family, it was a way for me to express two different things. First, it's the choice of God, to propose you a family. Many people are called to build a family through human love, to have a children, and so it can be in the choice of God, in a vocation, in a special vocation for many people. And then the choice that everybody can make to build a family. For the choice of the family, you can refer either to God's design of human love, marriage and family, or to the personal design of a man or a woman to build a family. That's why the choice of the family was a good title for this, because it was an opening very wide.
The book itself is actually the fruit of a series of interviews over about 4 days that you did with a particular interviewer, and then this got turned into the book. Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, in the preface is Archbishop Chaput talks about when the Church speaks of vocation, she means the calling out, as you were saying, of each human person to accomplish a task preordained by God in the co-redemption of the world. It seems like, a lot of times people, when they hear vocation, they think of vocation to the priesthood. They don't, and the religious life. They don't really think of vocation to the married life or the married state. At the same time, it seems like we've suffered a vocation crisis on both sides of the equation, not only in the past with religious life and to the priesthood, but also to the family life.
To family life, yes.
Right.
Yes, I think we could understand this unity in God's design. When in Council Vatican II, you see that every man and woman is called to holiness, the universal call to be holy, to sanctification. Then you understand that you may have this way, in whatever state of life, in a married life, conjugal life, or in a consecrated life with a celibacy consecrated to the kingdom. So I think the universal call to holiness helps us to understand that marriage is a true vocation.
What's also interesting here is the fact that he talks about preordained by God. So do you believe that each one of us are called to a particular vocation in life, and it's a question of us discovering what that is?
Yes, but we should express like that in a small, little bit different way. It means when God's design, when you speak of God's design on a particular life, we should always remember that any person is free.
Free will, right.
It's free. It's a kind of invitation. God helps to meet the right person, or to give you and to animate in you the desire to consecrate in the celibacy, if that's the case. And it means that it's a call and a design which is not a plan of one minister of plan who should decide you are called to a married life, and you, instead of that, to priesthood. Right. Of course, there's a discernment in life, and that's true.
But one could decide not to follow that path.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's why prayer is so important, right?
Yes, it's exactly the young man, the rich young man with Jesus. Jesus loved him. He was practicing everything, all the commandments of God. He was friend with God. There was nothing to be reproached to him. No? And Jesus said to me, okay, if you want to be perfect, it means if you want to be more than perfect, then come with me, follow me, and give everything you have and come with me.
But he was too attached to what he had.
He was too attached to what he had, but it was not a condemnation, no? The man was not separated from God, but he was not able to choose what was still better in his life, no? That the good
Archbishop Chaput also says here in the preface, this understanding of marriage is increasingly uncomfortable for the modern mind. Permanence seems implausible. Now, you're stationed in Rome for over 20 years. You're from a diocese near the Pyrenees in France, not far from Lourdes, about 30 miles or so. I remember us talking about that the last time as well. We have the Holy Father coming here to the United States, all talking about family and the importance of family. Do you see a difference in the way family is thought of in, let's say, the European mindset, the American mindset, and maybe the African or Asian mindset?
Oh, yes. It happens that I have traveled a lot, no, for my personal service in the church, my ministry, and we can observe many differences. Some difficulties you have in Europe or in the States don't exist yet in Africa. If you go to Africa, you would never talk about people divorce and turn out to get married and wanting to have access to the Eucharist communion. No, you won't have that. Instead of that, if you will have to talk about unity of marriage, polygamy, to understand what and so other different topics. No,
right.
And so in Europe and in America, I should say that within 20 years, there is a huge difference in the way that people have lost from sight the fact that marriage and family is not only a personal choice and desire, but it's also an institution, an objectively important and central and essential institution in society.
It's really the cell of society. It's the building block,
yes.
Right?
So we have to take and to keep the two aspects, the two elements complementary together, to understand that when we decide to get married, it ceases to be a private thing. Because if I get married, then you will know me as Mr. Married and Lady who is married with me, right, having the same name or
and then bringing children forth into life.
And also we would, married people accomplished tasks, no, and responsibilities that society is profiting from, no? For instance, to welcome small children, to educate them, to bring them up until the age where they are autonomous, so they can integrate society in a responsible way. That's, of course, today people think marriage as a limit to their own freedom, that's a problem of individualism, or as something that it's my private life. No?
Right, it doesn't have an impact on society, which it does.
Yes.
Archbishop Chaput also says the family by its very structure is a rejection of fear and expression of hope. And that's one thing I would say that you see here. You see here at the World Meeting of Families is the smiles, the hope, and the love, and all of that coming together. And like you said, we were interviewing some sisters who work with college students, and they said with college students there's something called FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yes.
And to some degree it's the same thing. People are afraid if I make a commitment here,
yes,
then maybe I'll be missing out on something over there. Yes. And that's really misguided.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now you also have Carl Anderson, who did the foreword here, and he had said, no institution in society can shape and in so many ways determine a person's life to the same extent as the man and a woman who gives one life in the family which one shares one's formative years. Because we really do see, you know, in the old days we kind of thought of the nuclear family. That was the traditional way we see. But as we see that kind of fall apart in many ways, we see that ripple effect through society, right?
Oh yes, yes. I think a man and a woman, obviously in a perspective of faith, of Christian faith, are linked to God's design as a creator, no? And so God knows and knew what was good for man, no? There is something extraordinary that St. John Paul II said. He was talking about the image and resemblance of God, no? Man was creator. And he said, man has been created not as an image of a single God alone in his loneliness who has created the world and so, but as man and woman having a communion, is as they are united in a deep communion, that man and woman have the more similar resemblance with God, that image of God, because they are the image of the imprescrutable, no? Unity of the divine person in the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, exactly, the image of the Trinity, that familial relationship.
It's extraordinary.
Right.
A man and woman who are united and are fruitful, or at least available to be fruitful, they are like the communion in God, which is fruitful. No, there is a gift of life given from God, to everything in the Trinity, and
well, I've always thought, a husband and wife coming together and have a child is the most divine-like act that a human being can participate in, which is to participate in the creation of another distinct human being.
Yes, it's extraordinary. I say sometimes to my own students, would you make please the effort? We stop everything during 1 minute, and you think of this fact, that in nature there is no other possibility for a human being to come to the existence without being the fruit of the deep union of a man and a woman. And normally this deep union of man and woman comes because they love each other. So it's extraordinary, and people don't think that. They think that life can come because, I would like to have a child now. I like some...
Right, and many times you find too, because I know one of the things with that kind of lack of commitment, you see a lot of people today where they delay having children, and we end up in a situation where you have a woman who suddenly realizes that I can feel this drive, I want to have a child, and it's a lot more difficult to have a child than they thought it was. Like you said, in a sense, it's not like, okay, I'm ready, let me press a button. It doesn't work that way.
Yes, right? Exactly. I had many times the opportunity to meet groups of parents, or not of parents, of couples who cannot be parents, are not children, without even though they would like to have. And all of them ask themselves, how is it possible? Marriage is aimed at the procreation, at giving life, and we cannot, we would like, how is it possible? And the only, I could see that, the only thing that could give some consolation to them is the fact that when they discover that they are a sign of the gratuity of the gift of life. It means if some couples, even if they desire that, cannot have a child, it means that all the children that exist are always a gift of God. And God is free to make his gifts in the way he wants. We don't understand that, of course.
It's always clear at that time.
Yes, right. In a faith. I'm talking in the perspective of faith, obviously, not in sociological, politically correct way, but in a faith it is, no? They are a sign, no? They are the sign. When they discover that, they see that their union is useful for everybody, and they're open to have other kind of fruitfulness in society.
Now, when you get elsewhere into the book, we get into your interview that starts off with your particular journey, and you kind of came from a rather large family, right?
12 children.
12 children, okay.
6 boys and 6 girls.
Right. Now, one of the questions asked in the book was, what qualities of your mother stand out the most to you? What qualities of your mother stand out the most to you? What was it about her that imbued you with your spirit of loving the family in a lot of ways?
I think she was a woman, she was extraordinarily busy with 12 children. Of course, when you are a child or an adolescent, you don't think that, because it seems to you normal that you get to eat, you get your everything cleaned and washed and so. But she was extraordinarily given to the family. The other thing is that she has a relationship, a single and an original one, unique relationship to every child.
Right.
And she was extraordinarily respectful for the interior life of everybody, you know. I mean, of course, we went to Mass on Sunday. They were very faithful to this appointment with the Lord in the Dominical Eucharist, my parents. And they went to Mass sometimes in a week, in the morning. But she was full of respect, no? She was not intrusive, and of course all of us, we could see that they were teaching, they were experiencing in their own life.
Right.
So, of course, even if sometimes when you are young, you can distanciate yourself with family norms and rules and so, it's a normal and maturity.
Right.
Then, when you are adults, you understand that they have incarnated and experienced what they have taught. And that's why you try to consider your own life and to want to do the same.
The teaching that young people get is by the example of how their parents act, how their parents live out not always what they say, but what they do. And sometimes we think the children even today are distracted and not paying attention. They're paying attention, and they see what you say. And it seems today in society, the whole idea of authenticity, that what young people today are looking for is someone who's being authentic, who's not saying one thing and living a different way. Because to some degree, that's what they're told is, oh, these people act this way, but they're not really that way.
Exactly. That's also the drama of our dear religion, no? And Christian faith, that you see that a huge proportion of people being baptized, and in the Catholic Church also, don't judge opportune to render a cult to the Lord on the day consecrated to Him, meaning to go to Mass on Sunday. So if parents don't go to Mass on Sunday, what kind of stimulation can be for the children, young children, and also for the future? They will always remember that sometimes the priority was to go to journey or to go to the sport, to march, to do whatever things.
Right.
No?
What's your priority?
Yes,
you say this, but I don't see you live up to that.
But when the Eucharist is at the center of a family life, Eucharist becomes the common treasure of the family. Right. And that's wonderful because everybody gather, then afterward there can be the lunch and the people, the brothers and sisters, the parents. It can last half a day or one day, the Sunday, but it's totally different.
And that's why when Sunday was in many ways more unique, where stores weren't open, there weren't as many things to do, it was the idea that one could sense that the other 6 days of the week could be very similar, but Sunday was substantially different and gave you a chance of a day of rest, actually, and to spend time with your family. Now, one of the questions you were asked, now you have to do with the John Paul II Institute, right?
Yes, I've been student there. I made my doctorate under the guidance of Professor Griegel, close friend of Karol Wojtyła, Professor Karol Wojtyła, no, of the Pope, and also with Cardinal Caffarra and so. And afterwards, Monsignor Caffarra called me to Rome with the Vatican to teach at the John Paul Institute. So now I am here for 21 years, right. And I'm going to start with.
So were you considered, one of the questions they asked you, were you among the first generation formed at the John Paul Institute?
Yes.
And why was John Paul important personally to you? And why do you think St. John Paul is so important to the church today and maybe our understanding of the family?
Oh, because for many reasons. I think John Paul II has a kind to relate to the family on a very personal, existential and concrete way. When he was teaching to the family as a professor in Krakow, no? In Poland, no? Sometimes it was with his students, and at the end of the lesson it was so interesting that the students wanted to continue that, and they went away to the forest, they bought something to eat, and the whole day was conversation and so on. It was so inspiring that thousands and thousands of people afterwards have been illuminated by this teaching. John Paul II was always talking about the personal aspiration in the heart of man and woman, no? Among them, to have an answer on the death, how will I be useful in society, and he was stressing the fact that the most profound desire in the heart of man and woman is the desire to love and to be loved, to be loved. And of course, what he made afterwards, these catecheses are huge and a monumental corpus, of doctrine of corpus. 5 years, 134 catecheses, and talking about marriage, but from different point of view, in a very pluridisciplinary way, biblical, philosophical, sacramental, moral and ethical, juridical. It's an extraordinary contribution. It's the first contribution, as a big contribution in the history of the Church.
In chapter 4 of your book, they talk about free love and free love in God, and they talk about fidelity and freedom. I thought that was interesting because a lot of people would not see those things going together. How does fidelity and freedom work together, especially in relation to marriage or the family?
It comes from a strange and wrong idea of freedom, no? Freedom for people now, it's the freedom to decide what I want in this moment. And I don't care tomorrow. Tomorrow I may have other desires. And so the freedom is to be also coherent with a decision one has made before, no? And fidelity is this coherence, the expression of this freedom, which is respected, kept, and also cared for, and that can be in the best condition to grow.
So how many languages is this book out in?
Already, this is the 8th language. Okay. In 2 years. I think it's extraordinary. I cannot criticize the other publishing companies, but I must say this is the most beautiful book, because it's right. As I say, image from a Random House.
Right.
I'm happy because it's also the publishing company who published Pope Benedict XVI.
Right. So I will, good company, right?
Yes, and I will offer the book to him as well. Yes.
Let me ask you, as far as the sales, are you finding in any particular language or country or continent that the sales are larger than in some other locales so far?
Of course, in France, because it was the first, and afterwards it was translated into Italian, into Polish, in German, but also in Portuguese. But the funny thing is that people from Brazil wanted to have their edition, not a Portuguese one, but a Portuguese from Brazil. So I have two.
Right.
I have two Portuguese editions.
Separated by a common language, apparently.
Yes, exactly.
Right? You end up with that sometimes.
But I think this, of course, something very special because the book is richer with the extraordinary texts of Archbishop Chaput and Calais and Anderson.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. Bishop Jean Laffitte,
so much.
Secretary of the Pontifical Council for the Family. Thank you so much for all the hard work you've given
so much.
And supported our...
As always, because it's a habit to me.
A great friend of ours, Archbishop Chaput. You've been so helpful. Yes. And this is a wonderful book, The Choice of the Family, A Call to Holiness, Abundant Life and Enduring Happiness, published by Image, available through the Ewtn Religious Catalog. Check it out. Check us out next time. Thank you for joining us. This very special On Location for the World Meeting of Families Bookmark.